Do you want to do it? No, thought not. Well, hello. If you've been following along so far, then you will have been building up your ability to do jiji-zhuang, and as I've talked about multiple times, this is the procedure that we're following, setting aside some time to do it, and within that time frame, doing as much as you can, building up step by step. Before I could do longer periods, well before I could do longer periods of standing, I'd already attuned myself through training to spend like an hour doing standing rather than just doing standing, but I'll do standing within that hour. So if you need to take pit stops, if you need to have a rest, because we're going to do 25 minutes today in a more difficult posture, if you need to take some pit stops, that's absolutely fine. As I've said before, I don't buy into any of this where people talk about making it a really horrible experience, and that's certainly not what Yourself recommended. Other teachers were much more strict, I know that, but the idea at this point is that, you know, in many ways the practice is dying out, so just encouraging people to do it in the way that we want to popularise it, but not in a negative way. So that's something I can talk about at another time, the way that it kind of gets watered down. So some people popularise it by encouraging people to do less, and that just doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. As I've said many times, you need to be able to do the standing over a longer period of time to get the correct sort of feelings that we need and to be able to play with those feelings. The way to do that is in a relaxed, calm, step-by-step progressional way. So we've looked at before, we've done bear holding a stone for 30 minutes, which if you manage to do that, that's an absolutely fantastic achievement. And we've done lateral zhuang, I think, for 25 minutes. Again, that's much more difficult than doing bear holding the stone. And today we want to change, we want to keep this forward stance posture, and we're going to change into this kind of posture, which is just like our basic holding a ball posture, and then we just step forward into our normal starting stance, and we hold like this. And we're going to do 25 minutes. I think I'll do it this way. We'll do it this way? Yeah, I'll do it that way. We'll do it that way today. And we're going to do 25 minutes. And it's a little bit harder because there's just a little bit more for the shoulders to do. We're just going to work through it together. Take some pit stops if you need to. Try your absolute best. If you need a pit stop, take one, and then we'll come back. We'll come back and do it now. Just make sure that you're all warmed up. I put my sleeves down because they can get quite tight around your arm, or you can psychologically start to think that they're tightening your arms. All kinds of things start going on in your mind. So have a warm up, just a couple of minutes to go, if that, and then we'll start. Remember to stretch your legs as well, those can really get. And I'll tell you a few things, and we'll talk about some of the feelings that I'm feeling that you might be feeling as per usual, just to get through the first, especially if it's the first time doing 25 minutes in a posture like this, just having that sense of community. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, get ready. Get in your stance. Always be ready. Okay, let's go. Let's just stand for a couple of minutes to settle into the feeling, and I'll talk about some of the things that I've seen, some of the things I want to talk about. Sometimes I feel such an enormous feeling of well-being, you know. It's not necessarily as soon as I start standing, but it was then. So I'm feeling now, this is one of the quite interesting things that you'll feel There's actually, I don't know if you can see it on camera, there's actually quite a lot of movement in my body, so I'm actually swaying a little bit. And that's very normal. Like, that's one of the things that we really learn about in jiji-zhuang, that, I mean, all it is the muscles, the micro sophistication of the muscles to stabilize your overall posture. And again, when I've talked before about the complexity of the idea of whole body interconnectivity as contrasted with whole body power, this is one of the micro details. Muscles just making kind of big adjustments, and then as you hold the posture for longer, they just settle into being a much more sophisticated micro adjustment of the posture. And you just feel your whole structure solidify more, and usually you'll feel that you become much heavier as well, and sometimes much bigger. And these are all psychological effects of just the muscles just knitting together into a whole system, but practically just using much finer micro motor control. It just creates this psychological effect that you feel really heavy and you feel really big. I think that's just like an effect of like feeling like the whole body become much more like one unit. So much for not talking for a couple of minutes. Let's not talk for a bit then. So it's usually about this point that the weaker parts of your mind start like filtering through, and we've all got them. They're there all the time. I always think it's quite interesting. Zhao Daoxin talks about people who are interested in martial arts very much being much more afraid of violence than the average person. So they very often have to go through those barriers much more acutely, for example, of building up their confidence for doing sparring or facing an actual self-defense situation. But similarly, those like weaker parts of the mind can filter through quite easily and just start saying, you can't do this, you've got a pain there, I've got pain in my bicep, my right bicep. So I've just got to work through it and not let the weaker part of my mind dominate. This is another level and layer of intent, the will. And training that will, that bloody-mindedness. Sometimes that weaker part is right, sometimes that weaker part says, well done, you've got a bit of a twingery there, you shouldn't be training on that. You should listen to it, but other times it's always there, like encouraging you to take the easier path, and you've got to dominate it. You've got to honour it, respect it, but say respectfully, you are part of me, but this other part of me is making a decision today. So I felt my whole intent change then into a much more serious level of intent. As it changed, my whole posture changed with it. You could probably even see that on camera. It just integrated more into a structure. Just the kind of thing like if someone was just going to run into you, when you see them running at you, and you just brace the whole, but without panicking, you just brace into a springy posture, ready to receive that force. It's that kind of feeling. That's a change of mind and body. They're interlinked together, so it's a really interesting feeling to look out for. So the more my bicep feels pain, the more the tendency is to tense around that area, because that's what we do when we're injured in an area. The muscles tense around it. And of course, tension then makes everything worse. You just gotta. What else can you do in this posture? You can only use your mind. You can use a deep breath just to create a little movement in the posture. But other than that, what can you do? You can only use your mind. You can only use your intent. So focus on that and make it relax. See what I'm saying about the training process. I'm going to do that for a bit now. So I'm getting a similar pain in my other, right in the same place, right at the top of the bicep. I think that's from standing before, I think. Just feeling it a little bit. At this point, Don't worry about time. Focus on how it feels inside. Focus on the feelings in the body, even the pain. Focus on each part of the body and the feelings that are. Try and get that integrated feeling. Try and feel every part of the body together. A lot of the people who talk a lot about jiji-zhuang don't really do it. You know that, right? They don't really do it. You can tell in their movement. But I think most importantly, as I've said before, like, it's the way they talk about it. They always just talk about it as giving them some kind of special fighting power, and it kind of compensates for the fact that you never actually see them using each one practically in a live environment. So they can distract from that. Like I'm distracting you now from the pain you might be feeling. They can distract from that by talking about jiji-zhuang in kind of mystical terms and leaving it to everyone else's imagination. And they just post a photo of themselves standing, or standing for a minute or something like that. But they never talk about this kind of thing, like the feelings that you might be feeling. Like, oh, I've got a really interesting feeling there right in my tricep, not a painful feeling, like a tingling right down my tricep, like I talked about before, the radiation feeling, like my tricep area is pushing out backwards. The nerves and muscles that would push backwards with my tricep are all being triggered. That's a really interesting feeling. So you never really hear them talk about this kind of thing, which I suspect is because they haven't actually been through it. I don't understand how, in cases of people who've trained in China, how they've got away with that. I just don't understand it. But there again, I don't understand how they've got away without sparring or doing fight training. I don't understand it. If they could do it, they'd show it. I'm bringing negativity into my posture, and I can feel it. I can feel it in my structure. I'm tensing because my stress with those people is making my posture tense, which is a useful learning point, about visualization and what you visualize, and why people say, like, visualize something beautiful, something that makes you feel better, rather than something that stresses you, because stress brings tension into the posture, makes it harder. And visualize something beautiful for a bit. got spasm in my leg then that just thrust my whole posture forwards like Farley. Could have just put a punch right on the end of it, would have been perfect movement. Well, in micro form. And then I just got there's a phenomenon Yao Zhongzun talks about that you always think that your non-dominant arm is in the wrong position, that it's dropped when it hasn't necessarily. It's just because you don't feel it in the same way as your dominant arm. And I'm left-handed, so just felt like my right hand, my right elbow just dropped. Maybe it did, but I saw a video of someone on YouTube. You can talk like this while you can watch the telly even. It's very common in China, and you can see it on videos as well. The teacher will be lecturing the class while everyone's doing standing. I saw a video of someone talking about jiji-zhuang, Santi Shi, where you stand in the basic jiji-zhuang guard posture, and he was saying, you do this to so that you can get structure. I thought, like, not to criticise, well I am criticising, so go for it. How far off the path we are that we don't realise that, well, you know, I can assure you that you already have a structure, you know. Standing doesn't give you structure. You already have a structure. Standing integrates your will with your structure so that you can operate and change your structure on a more sophisticated level. You're already a master of structure. If you've learned how to move around, whether that be walking around or in a wheelchair, if you can get around and move your body, you've mastered structure to a very high degree. It's about changing that structure. It's like learning one language. People don't realise what an achievement it is to learn one language and master it. If you've done it once, you can do it again, you can learn another language. It's the same, exactly the same with structure. Not long to go. This is the point where we've really got to deeply focus, not even to worry about visualisation, just deeply focus on the posture itself. Deep breaths, adjust, and adjust your will. Let's get into that mode where we'll do this. Come with me as we do it. If you feel that your breathing's gone shallow, that's because you're trying to keep the same breathing, whereas your muscles are burning oxygen. So go deeper with your breathing. It's still natural, but go deeper. push through it. If you're feeling pain, try and push through it. Most of it's tension, I assure you, most of it's tension. I'm feeling it myself. My bicep was hurting quite a lot, it feels tense. But most of it is tension. If you can endure, it'll give in. Focus on the feelings in your body, embrace it, respect them, honour them. Live in the pain. Don't ignore it, don't focus on time, don't endure it, just focus on it, experience it. Getting a bit Hellraiser, I know, just experience it. And breathe and relax, try and relax it. Nearly there. Come with me deep into the heart of it. It's less than a minute to go now. Less than a minute. Just stay with me. Breathe deep. Breathe deep. I'm watching the clock. Remember, when we put our arms down, we do it slowly because you can pull a muscle just by putting your arms down fast. So your arm, they all lock. Oh, it's gone through adverts. It's because I've got it on Sky. I'm going to estimate 30 seconds, so last 30 seconds. And we did start maybe a little bit late as well. A few seconds. I've got it on the wrong TV station, I've got the one that has adverts. So let's do our last 10 seconds. Okay, arms down slowly, slowly. You'll feel it in your arms. I can feel it, particularly my left arm, like it's gone almost paralysed. Down. Don't worry, that's the feeling you want, and then change. See my left arm go faster then. It's gone really cold. Change. Oh, right in the nuts, thanks mate. That's just what I needed. Yeah, I really felt that then, I really felt tension. It's from standing earlier and yesterday, doing longer periods, and that just, I really felt it in this part of my arm. And it created tension in my arm, particularly my left arm, towards the end there, and I could really feel it when I put my arms down. This arm felt really cold, it still feels cold, and a little bit of pins and needles. That's tension in the arm, and that's entirely caused by just like the muscles tensing because there's a little bit of pain in the arm, and then just having to work through that. And like chatting about the feelings rather than just focusing on the feeling itself made it a little bit harder than just to focus on relaxing it, which is a really good learning point. So just like the importance of spending time kind of isolated doing it and just focusing on the internal feelings, as opposed to having a chat and things like I'm doing now. But I'm doing that very particularly, as you know, to kind of encourage community so that we can at least do these first big breakthrough. That's a big breakthrough, by the way. If you've done 25 minutes, then well done. That's never easy, really. 25 minutes. There's always something. you know, that you usually have to work through to get past that. I'm going to go further than that, don't worry, you're going to get there step by step. But being able to just work on things like that, if you've got tensions in the body, and just focus and not have distractions, so not usually chatting and stuff like that. And then rub it all into the beard that I'm growing, so my beard will grow healthy, all the healthy chi. Yeah, well done, 25 minutes, that's excellent, outstanding achievement. Even if you have to take a few pit stops, just setting aside 25 minutes, most people can't. Like I've said before, it's about the time itself. Most people can't even bear to set aside an hour, say, to do, or even 25 minutes just to do standing. It's like, well, I'll do 15 minutes, you know, I'll do 2 minutes like that. And there's unfortunately, it's one of the things that we're seeing at the moment is quite a lot of videos of people like, well, I'll do 2 minutes like this and I'll do 2 minutes like that, and you just don't get the feelings that you need, and you don't get that kind of experience. And like I said, we're not really hearing people talk about that kind of experience, so I think it's very important as a community of learning that I do that. So that was quite an interesting one for me. Even though it was only 25 minutes, I found that quite difficult, and had to work through that. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you over in the next one. Thanks very much for watching as ever. One love.